Hello and welcome to Elena Meets the Author. This podcast explores how authors create a world that we can escape into. Join me as we demystify the magic that keeps us turning the page. Today, I'm speaking with Yael Van Der Wouden, whose debut novel, The Safekeep, was shortlisted for the Booker Prize last year. Only 6 books made the shortlist, and this was the first time a Dutch author was chosen. Her novel, a psychological thriller with erotica and a subtle, incisive angle on Hitler's war, was named a Best Book of 2024 by the New York Times, the Washington Post, LA Times, Time Magazine, The Economist, the Sunday Times in England, and a host of others. Think Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca with the twist. The 261-page, tautly written book, meant to hold it up, builds slowly, gaining momentum in each of its 3 parts. It centers on a nearly 30-year-old woman named Isabelle living in a small town in the eastern part of the Netherlands. It's 1961, 16 years after the end of World War II. Isabelle is a recluse, taking care of the house that she and her 2 brothers and late mother fled to during the war. Isabelle has no friends, no life, really. Her weeks consist of mundane errands, going to the butcher, the baker, visiting her banker to see about her allowance, and ensuring that the house remains unchanged since her mother's death. She has 2 brothers, Henrik and Louis, who left the home years ago and who visit rarely. She resents them for their carefree life, while she dutifully maintains the house and everything in it, from the crockery to the curtains. Henrik is her younger brother, and he fled as a teenager when their rigid, cold mother disapproved of his sexuality. He lives with his Algerian boyfriend, Sebastian. And Louis, the older brother, is a bit of a womanizer, falling in and out of love easily. And most annoying to Isabelle, Louis is set to inherit the house once he marries and settles down. Isabelle's world is upended when Louis brings his latest girlfriend, Ava, to live at the house one long, hot summer while he travels on a work project. Isabelle can't stand Ava. Her badly dyed hair, her sloppy ways, getting up late, going to bed late, the way she touches everything in the house and asks so many questions. Who is this annoying woman? And then Isabelle starts to suspect Ava of stealing. A teaspoon has gone missing, then a plate. She becomes obsessed watching Ava's every move. And that's just part 1 in a 3-part book. So, Yael, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you could make it.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. That was a great introduction. I don't think I've been able to summarize the book better than that. So I might steal parts of it.
Very funny. I read somewhere that you wrote this book in just 6 months, that the idea for the novel came to you between 2 family funerals in the Netherlands. Can you tell us again, for those who haven't heard your other interviews, where the seed to the novel started and your process of writing The Safekeep? Had the ideas been percolating for a while?
Yes. I mean, every time I tell this part of it, I always want to have a more concise story to tell, because if I go with yes, I went to 2 funerals and in between them I looked out over the fields and the idea came to me, which is important, true, but I think it came to me perhaps not by way of thinking about my family history, rather through grief. I think when you're trying to escape grief in your mind, at least I always have, okay, this is going to go down a completely different rabbit hole. But when I was a kid, what I would do when I couldn't fall asleep is I would, I called it mind theater. I would imagine putting the VCR, like the tape in the VCR, and starting and pressing play on my favorite Disney movie. And then I would just play the whole movie in my head from beginning to end, or as far as I would get before falling asleep. And I would do this every single night. Most often it was 101 Dalmatians. And
Great movie.
I loved it as a child. And I think the messiness or not messiness of houses really, so I think maybe there's a seed to be found in that house design and in that animation. It's beautiful.
Right.
But all the same, I've always done that when I've either couldn't fall asleep or was somewhere where, before cell phones, before smartphones. If I didn't have a book with me, I would just go into the latest scene of a movie I'd watched or a story that I made up myself, and I'd disappear into that. And I think that was a habit I got into, and I think that was something I reached for when in the grief between the 2 funerals. And I think I was looking for a story that would distract me wholly, and the idea of Isabelle and the house and a stranger coming in took hold of me. But the truth of it is that the themes had been percolating for years. The frustration I'd felt with how the Dutch memorialize their history and narrativize their history, but also questions of complicity and culpability throughout history. These are conversations that I've been having for years and years and years as an academic, but also as a reader. And yeah, and then all of it came together quite quickly after that.
So you moved to Holland from Israel when? How old were you?
I was 10. And my father is Dutch, hence my last name. Yes.
Right, exactly. So I'm just thinking Isabel's 11
Yeah.
in the book. What was your experience as a Jewish person in the Netherlands, moving from Israel to there? Was it quite different?
Oh, yes. I mean, so I always, not always, but at this moment in time, I hesitate to talk about my childhood experiences because I'm always afraid that it's going to be sort of taken out of context or seen in the wrong light when I compare and contrast Israel to the Netherlands. Or I hesitate to speak of Israel with any kind of nostalgia, especially in this current climate, because I do want to be careful of creating nostalgia around Israel and its politics, which I stand firmly in opposition of. And yes, my experience as a child was one of an intense cultural backlash. And then moving to a part of the country where I was one of the handful of Jewish children, I think maybe max 5.
Yeah.
And the other ones were, my sisters and the 2 children of maybe
2 cousins.
2 cousins, exactly. And I've had conversations with my parents about this and my sisters as well, because sometimes I wonder whether my experience moving to the city where I moved to, which was Zwolle, was somehow a tiny bubble that I ended up with, because I experienced quite a lot of strange, funny, but also painful anti-Semitic moments there. When I mean strange and funny, is just like I have this one memory of this walking across the playground, and this girl and this guy, they were just hardcore making out. They were just going for it, leaning against the bike rack. And then the girl just sort of like removes the guy's face from her face. Like you can almost hear the smooching sound of it.
Yeah.
Turns to me and shouts across the yard. She shouts, "Ben jij die Jodin," which is Dutch for "Are you that one Jew girl?"
Oh.
And then
Wow.
what do you say? You say yes, and then you keep on walking. So that
Wow.
moments like that
Yeah.
were funny, but then there were like more intense moments of children who I believe didn't quite know what they were doing or had decided to be edgy in one way or another, and would carve swastikas into lockers or tables, or would draw cartoons of me and then sort of like slip them so that I could see them. Yeah, it was a very I was very not only did I go from a place where I didn't have to think much about my identity as a Jewish person to a place
Right.
where I had to, but suddenly I had to also explain that identity to a community whose only understanding of Jewishness was the Holocaust or Anne Frank, or tropes that they had gotten from television through the States, or tropes that I had gotten through anti-Semitic tropes that are sort of bread and butter of Dutch storytelling sometimes. So it was a whiplash in many ways, not just because I was a teenager. There's also that I was a teenager, and I think going from knowing a language and knowing your friends to trying to figure out how popularity works in a place where you don't understand the cultural conventions is also complicated. But yeah.
So it was something that was percolating. And in your book, you said it in 1961 for a specific reason that in a way I feel like connects to that the war is over and we're just
Yes.
moving on. Can you explain?
Yes, I grew up in a time and space where the war was absolutely and completely over, and yet it would not. It kept on sort of creeping up in strange ways, in anecdotes, in conversations, in remnants in the city, right? In Zola, which features quite largely in the book. There are these remnants of houses where people lived, or at the synagogue where people used to worship. And these places have either been reshaped or have emptied out. And in the Dutch language, there's remnants of Yiddish, of the people who used to speak Yiddish, but the people are gone, even though it's still very much part of the Dutch language. So I felt like I grew up in a post-war environment, but the ghost of the war was always present, but also it was me. I was the ghost. I was the person who reminded people of the war. And so I wanted to place it in 1961 because I wanted to explore that, but I couldn't have it be removed too far from the war in order to make it work with the plot. The 60s, we have an association with the 60s. We have this idea of it's going to be a moment, like it's the era of liberation. It's the era of excess. It's the era of true rebuild, like creating a new identity that isn't shaped by the long shadow of the war. I think when we think about the 50s, we still think about sort of like this new, like the rebuilding, but also the nuclear family that comes from the legacy of the Second World War. And then the 60s, something starts to shift. There's a liberation, there's a freedom, there's an excess. And then to then follow a character who knows no excess and no liberation, and then to slowly pull her apart seemed fascinating to me.
Yeah, that was very good. Oh, did you really write the book in 6 months?
I did.
Amazing.
But you must this is what I always say to my student, you must remember. Before this novel came many others that were not written in 6 months and never saw the light of day. And it's not a coincidence that, if like, it's not a situation where I decided, woke up one day, I was like, oh, I want to be a writer. Let's see what I can do. And then sat behind the computer and it
Voila.
rolled out of me. Years and years and years of attempting. And I'd never sent anything out because I was never satisfied with anything I'd written so far. And when the idea for The Safekeep came to me, I was writing a different novel, and it felt terrible because it felt like I was cheating on the other novel. And so I kept on thinking about, kept on being like, oh, I'm just gonna work on the plot, and no one has to know. I'm just gonna do a little. It was really like I was like I had a side chick. Yes, but also the 6 month is relative because I spent 4 months before that setting it up, creating the outlines, putting the plot together. A lot of people have asked me about sort of the plot and whether I just started writing and saw where it took me, and that even the thought of that makes me want to sweat. It makes me so nervous, the idea of starting to write without knowing where I'm going to go. I'm an intense planner when it comes to writing. So I have I not only did I have outlines upon outlines, I had flashcards, I had everything was color coded.
Wow.
It took me months and months to just create as much of scaffolding as possible, including bits of dialogue, including bits of movement. I already had certain scenes a little bit written out. So by the time that I started writing, the outline, like it was basically just coloring it in.
Right.
And which is how I like it, because when I do it like that, when I write, I don't have to think about the plot. I can immerse myself in the language that I want it to be, in the cadence, the rhythm. So it's not a matter of plot or outlining over language and context. I create the plot and the outlining so I can experiment with language.
Yeah, so you're free.
So I'm free of the plot, yes.
You wrote this book in English, not Dutch.
True.
Tell us why.
Oh, it's not a very interesting answer, which I will give anyway. It's my first language. I grew up speaking English. My mom and my dad both speak each other's languages very well, but the habit has always been to to communicate in English at home between the two of them. So I grew up hearing them speaking mostly English, and it wasn't a perfect English, I'm sure, but that's what television and movies and
Oh, yeah. That's where
podcasts
they
are
come,
for.
101 Dalmatians.
Exactly. I
Okay.
was obsessed with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when I was a kid, and I would watch that on repeat. And for some reason, I think that's where a
Or your
lot of
English.
where the sort of the holes in my English came from. So English first language, Hebrew second, Dutch third.
Okay.
I've had the question of whether I could have written it in Dutch, and I think in Dutch it would have sounded as if I was trying to fit Dutch into shoes that weren't made for it.
Mm,
My understanding of Dutch grammar is just not native enough for me to be able to do
okay.
a big project like this, I don't think.
Now back to the book.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about Isabel's conflicted relationship with her two brothers? It's about
Yes.
Henrik and Louis.
Of course. So she has her two brothers that you've introduced so well. Hendrik, the youngest one, he left the house indeed when he was 16. His mother found out about his affair with a piano teacher, as one does. And then he basically, his mother gave him an ultimatum of a kind, where she said either you stay here or stay here and never do this again, or you leave. And he, of course, leaves and never returns again, never to truly live with them. He rebuilds his relationship with Isabelle eventually, but Isabelle has always associated his love life with abandonment.
Mm,
Her brother desired something, and that something was more important than him staying there with her, him keeping her company, him being loyal to her. And on the other hand, we have Louis, the oldest, who has never much understood her, has never much given her a lot of attention or time. But he too has this habit of putting his love life above on the at first place. He always has a new girlfriend, and he always brings it no matter what. He doesn't quite consider the situation or the sensitivity of a situation, the nuance of it. For example, he brings a random girlfriend with him to his mother's funeral.
I love that.
And Isabelle is annoyed with it because now that girlfriend is in all the pictures,
Yeah.
and no one even remembers her name. So Isabelle's through her brothers, her association with desire and with love and with sexuality has become synonymous with selfishness and abandonment. And she tries to rebuild the relationship by instituting these monthly or bi-monthly or however much dinners that they have occasionally. But each time that they meet up, it seems to reaffirm to her how self-involved her siblings are, and how she's the only one who truly cares about what matters, which is the house and their mother's legacy. And of course, when she then comes to find her own desires, she has to work through a lot of those feelings herself to be able to justify that for herself.
Maybe now would be a good time for you to just read a brief
Yes,
excerpt from your book.
of course. So the context for this excerpt is Ava, who's come to stay with her for the summer, has disappeared off into town, which makes Isabelle extremely suspicious. And then she returns with a pear for Isabelle. There was another pear left in the middle of the table, propped like a statue. Ava said, "I got one for you, too." Just the one. Not a bag of pears or several for the fruit basket, just the two. One for her, one for Isabelle. "I don't want it," Isabelle wanted to say. She said, "Thank you." She took the pear, put it in her pocket. Ava looked amused. "You won't eat it?" "Later," Isabelle said, and then, with a few aborted movements, fled upstairs. In her bedroom, Isabelle, sitting on the edge of her bed, held the pear in the cup of her hand. If she'd eat it now, she'd have to go downstairs to throw away the pits, the core. If she ate it later, Ava might walk by, see her eat it. She did not want Ava to see her eat it. She could throw away the whole thing. She could open the window and throw it away. It was a water-heavy fruit, full ripe. The first bite spilled on Isabelle's skirt. It wouldn't show. The fabric was brown checkered. There was no way of eating it in silence, the sounds it made, the wet. Isabelle ate through the whole thing, the flesh and stick and pits and core and all. She made sure nothing was left of it, as though it had never been given in the first place. Her arms were dripping, wet all around her mouth. She had to wash her face in the basin afterward. The spot on her skirt, where the fruit had stained, remained throughout the day, a cloying brush to the back of her hand.
Very nice. Thank you. You write about loathing and desire a lot. Do you think those two are closely related?
Oh, yes, of course. Both are a deep investment in somebody. And I think it's also how you get sometimes when, what's the name of that theory? I think something with the theory of investment. It's not quite like that, but this idea of that when you invest a lot in, let's say, a celebrity, right? You follow them, you follow their actions, everything, and then they do something that you disagree with and that you don't like, that doesn't align with your views of the world. You can turn just as intensely the other way and invest an equal amount of time in talking about how much they have changed, how much they have disappointed you, how much you no longer want to spend time and money on any of their things, which comes from the same place, right? It comes from the same investment, same emotional investment,
Yeah.
same fascination with a person or their action. So I think desire and loathing definitely are very, very related in the place that they take up in our lives and in the place that they take up in our emotional world.
Two things I want to talk about, amongst others, is the way you build suspense and your writing of erotica. Those two really, I thought, were terrific. In terms of suspense, you would drop these hints and then just kind of move on. Was it easy for you to write suspense, or did you have to go back and edit out things to make it more spare?
Yes, to both. I love writing suspense. I love trying to figure out what creates tension and what breaks tension. And especially with a voice like Isabelle, who's not allowed to have, if she had any self-reflection, if she had the ability to think about her actions or her desire or her interiority in any way, this book could not have existed, right? It would have there would have been no tension. And also, she only needed to ask like a few questions, and then there we have it, the answer.
Right.
And so I needed to create a voice for Isabelle where she didn't have access to herself, and we as readers don't have access to her. And so I would write these dialogue sections, and then be like, oh no, that she understands too much. She needs to understand less. And so I would go back and have to edit a lot of it away, or create these half thoughts, these unfinished thoughts, unfinished sentences. And she does that not only in her dialogue and the way she speaks. She doesn't only halt continuously as she speaks, but also in the text herself, in her internal monologue, and also in some of the scenes that we see through her eyes. You have this sharp cut that we cut away to another scene, another space, because we are sort of, the knowledge is constantly sort of hinted at and taken away. And this is also in a way how this history works, how it operates in Dutch society. You know, when you don't know, you are given hints of something and it's taken away, and then you don't have to, or you're not encouraged to think about it too much. And it's just the snatches of realization that are then taken away. But it was very interesting indeed to sort of see what creates tension and what releases tension, and when I needed to really sort of pull it as tight as possible. But you cannot go on with high tension forever. You need to have moments of relaxation or of hope or of
Right.
something else, and to see exactly how much I could give and then exactly how much to then take away in order to make sure that you do want to continue reading, that you don't get tired of the heightened emotion of it all.
And maybe that applies also to your writing the erotic chapter, the tension.
I think the erotic chapter, if you just open it and start reading, I don't know if it will work. Maybe for some people. For me, it wouldn't work without the 100 pages leading up to it. I think erotica in itself, I think if if it's just the sex itself, then I would call it porn.
But it's not porn at all.
No, it's and it is what you were talking about. It's the tension, the ankle. The reason why the ankle works is because when you talk about the ankle, you take the attention away from the parts of the body that we traditionally associate with the erotic parts, the sexy parts, right?
Yeah.
The breast, the crotch, or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you pull it away from that and you take it to places that are not traditionally seen as sexy, you create that heightens the tension. You pull something taut because the reader is wondering why we're going there. What is it about the ankle that is erotic? What is it that we're not allowed to see, right? The camera pans away and we are left both in question, but also we are made aware of our viewership. We're made aware that we are a pair of eyes that are now looking at something else. So you're creating a tension between the viewer, the reader, and the text itself. And within the text, you create tension because you fragment the body away from the sexy, and then from the sexy. And then if you manage to create texture in the text by occasionally indeed focusing on the ankle or maybe pulling away into a memory, not letting us exist in the full body all the time. And then suddenly you pull us back into the sex by using a word like fucking.
Right.
It creates a certain that whiplash effect. That's what I call the tension.
Yeah.
That you don't only, because you can just very easily go for a wide shot and settle the camera and be like, okay, actors go, and just it describes two people having sex. But then what you get is you as a reader, you don't have tension with the text itself. And for me, if I don't have attention, if the text doesn't create attention with me, then I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. It's the same idea if if you say the character was sad, you will go, okay, the character was sad. If you describe sadness in a roundabout way, if you describe sadness in the body, or you say, she wiped at her face to realize that it was wet. You enter into sadness through the back door, and you allow the reader to understand it themselves. You give the reader the opportunity to enter into the story themselves, rather than just handing them the conclusion, saying this is what you have to feel, this is what you have to think, this is what the character thinks. No work for you. Off you go. I think it's the work that you as a reader have to do yourself that also creates the tension.
And very cinematic. So you're thinking the whole time as you're writing the book, are you thinking of it a bit like a film or no?
Yeah, I mean, now we're back to 101 Dalmatians. My parents they both come from film. Before I knew how to write, before I knew how to literally write, my parents had taught me how to make little animations in the margins of books. If you flip the pages. They taught me how to storyboard, because if I wanted to make an animation, I had to think beforehand because you cannot just start an animation, right? It's not like a drawing. It's not like a painting. You have to think of what kind of movement you want your character to express. And I'm a very, very avid film lover. So I think I think maybe in a different universe, I would have got into film, but going into film is quite expensive. You need a camera, you need time, and writing is much cheaper in comparison.
And you can do it anywhere.
You can do it anywhere, and you make no compromises, at least for your first draft. You don't have to, you're the cinematographer, you're the set designer, you're just in control of everything. And then of course in the editorial process you let go of control, which is also nice in its own way.
Yes. Oh, why the 3-part structure?
I love a good classic. I've always loved a good classic. I've never I think I studied comparative literature, and there does seem to be sometimes this narrative of, when you're a simple mind when you're a simple-minded youth,
Mm.
you gravitate toward traditional narratives and toward plot, and then when you mature and you come into your intelligence, that's when you will appreciate the fragmented storytelling and postmodern storytelling. And to be clear, I love it. I love all of it. I have really, really sort of had a period where I started reading postmodern novels and became obsessed. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be the classic narrative novel that will make me feel big feelings and make me think big thoughts. And the 3-act structure is as classic as it gets. And also, I experienced just a lot of joy in taking the classic structure, the stranger comes to town, or the conflict escalation denouement, which is that's the old Greek structure of
Right.
a narrative. To take something as classic as that and then give it something that felt very not classics, maybe something modern in a way, take modern in whatever way you want to take it, small letter M, big letter M. But to write about culpability, to write about lesbians, and to write about erotica, which I think is not a combination that at least I've never seen in the exactly given in this specific way. Well, I say that, and I immediately think of several examples, but it felt to me like an exciting exercise to create something that feels old and classic, but to have its characters desire modernity that doesn't correspond with the form.
Right. And then part 3 is
Yes.
completely different again. Part 3 is all so you have part 1 and 2 from Isabelle's perspective, and then part 3 is Ava's journal, where you get Ava's voice.
We start, but we're still seeing it. We're still reading it through Isabelle's perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
But her words.
Her voice, we finally get to hear what she sounds like in her own head when she's not mediating it in any way, when she's not pretending. No, that was a great joy to write. It was the fastest chapter I wrote as well.
It was great. And what a twist. You definitely kept me surprised. I kept on being surprised, even though reading it a second time, there are clues that I just didn't. A minor character I wouldn't mind talking about is Uncle Carl. Since he's the one that secured the house, what's your feeling about Uncle Carl in the first place?
So my feeling about all the characters is I didn't enter into the novel to judge any of them. Ian Forster, I think, once said that you have to love all your characters in order to write about them, which is a very Ian Forster thing to say. And I adhere by that 100%. I think that in order to write truthfully about somebody, you have to love them even if they are terrible. Because if you do not love them, then you will bleed through as a narrative voice. If you write about a character that you believe is evil, and I can hear in the narrative voice that you believe, as the narrator, that you believe that this character is evil, the first thing that I will do is it'll take me out of the story. Because suddenly I hear the author, and then the social contract that I've entered into, which is I'm going to pretend that this is true and you're going to pretend that this is true, and we're both pretending for 300 pages. That's broken. And I feel quite betrayed when that trust is broken. And second of all, it creates a very childish narrative feeling. Let's say Voldemort is evil, and everybody can agree that Voldemort is evil, and there is no nuance to Voldemort. But also, it's the kind of evil that can only exist in children's book. And I think even in saying that, I'm not giving enough credit to children's book, that are often quite nuanced and quite layered. To me,
so you loved Uncle Carl.
I mean, I don't love him in real life. I've met Uncle Carl. I've met Isabelle. I've met all of them, and most of them, with a few dear exceptions, would absolutely drive me up the wall and would piss me off in many, many ways. But I needed to write him truthfully, and I needed to find his conviction. I needed him to speak in without showing that I disagreed with him. He needed to speak in a way that he believed himself to be right. He had to believe himself to have done the right thing. He had to believe that he acted from a place of love and from a place of protection.
Right.
And it was, it's quite, it's draining to write like that, because it's a very tense way of writing to bring it back to tension.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it was also, I wrote Uncle Carl, and I was like, yeah, this is a voice that I've heard many times before, and a voice that has made me incandescently angry. And now I have to create
explaining things away.
Yes, explaining things away and justifying any action through, well, such was life, and we had to do what we had to do. And then you have Isabelle opposite him, who was previously without knowledge and now with knowledge, who has to breathe through it and find a way to gamify the interaction so that she gets out of it what she wants to get out of it. I had to rewrite that final scene with Uncle Gal many times over to get it exactly right, with exactly the right noises in the background and the prune tree, and just all the little details had to be pitch perfect.
Him eating her biscuit.
Yes, but that one, that's Dutch culture 101. You get one biscuit, baby.
Yeah, the signs that he was nervous or greedy. So what would you like readers to take away from your book, if you had to?
So I wrote this book for myself because I was thinking a lot about what I wanted from the society and what I was unhappy with. And it came from a place of feeling undesired. Because I think at the heart of prejudice and the heart of marginalization and at the heart of looking away from suffering is indifference. And the opposite of indifference isn't tolerance or isn't charity. It's desire. It's saying, I was indifferent to you, or I was repulsed by you even, and now I desire you. And so I wanted to take a character from beginning to end and see how she could start with indifference or repulsion even, and bring her slowly, step by step, into desire. And I wanted it to end on this idea of like, this is what we can find in opposition to prejudice. And these are all the little steps that we might find ourselves as part of a prejudice system. It's not going to be indeed Voldemort coming in, right? You're not going to wake up one day and be evil. It's tiny little moments of indifference, of thoughtless action that slowly take us over into a place where we are complicit, or we are part of a larger evil. And I wanted to chip at that system just a little bit by introducing desire. So I think if I can have the readers take away anything, it'll be that. It's find desire where you did not expect desire.
Change is possible. Yeah, I mean, Isabelle. She really transforms from the beginning to the end.
And
the beginning, I was like,
same.
oh.
Yeah, no,
I was like, a whole book of this woman?
exactly. That's what I wanted people to feel. I wanted people to feel like, oh, I can't deal with this. And then slowly make them sort of turn the wheels enough that by the end of it, you think,
Yeah, it was good. It was great.
I want to see who she is and how she changes. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I know we're out of time. I just want to ask last question. What are you working on now? Are you working on another book?
Oh, in fact, I can tell you this is a total, I don't know if I would call it a scoop. I don't know if anyone would care that much. But today, just an hour before I came here, I finished my first draft of a new novel.
Fantastic.
So you're the first person I'm telling.
And you're excited about it. This one you're going to...
I mean, I had a great time. I had a fun time. I don't know if anyone else will have a fun time, but I very much enjoyed writing this one.
Is it completely different?
It's different and it's the same. I know that says nothing. It's historical. It's still about lesbians, but the rest is different.
Takes place in Holland?
Yep. On an island. We've gone to an island this time.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to reading it. And thank you so much. I really appreciate you making the time.
Thank you for your time.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you haven't read The Safekeep, don't wait. Read it. It's great. It's haunting and hopeful, original, and the writing is stunning. The metaphors just sing. There's a reason she was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. Her first book, I might add. I can't wait to read her second book. So, if you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to write a review for the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you again, and see you in 2 weeks.